County Engineer with Road Matters. Go ahead, Lee.
Just for some project updates, they're done with all the removals on 175th Street. There are a few little soft spots in there that we're gonna be monitoring because it's all we. Targeting a week from today to start the mainline paving, barring weather. And I guess to me, that'd probably be the only thing that changes on them, but, we'll see how it goes. Hopefully they'll by next Monday, they'll be going. That'll be big deal. We need to get this stuff covered up.
Has there been any changes to that project as far as the paving?
As far as
You putting
a fabric in, there's called a, valued engineering that you can do with the contractor. And, it'll save us $100,000 to do it. And, I talked to a bunch of other counties that have done it and they said there's no reason not to do it. They've had great luck with it, so.
That's as bad as that road was fractured is in the West Boston. Will that save us from that stuff veering back up through and breaking up on us for
Those that I talked to said he won't have a problem. I talked to the contractor and they said, I don't want any issues in workability. I don't want you coming back to me after this and saying, well, we got to do this. This is the savings we're going to get. You're eating any other costs that happen with it. So we'll see what happens, but that's what we're doing. Canopy moved in on W14. They're going to be doing that final box extension that they didn't get done. Did get done last fall, and then when Canopy gets out of there, we'll finish that one up too and get those all done. So W14 should be ready for paving when that happens.
question there. Did they pull all that material there, or is that still, we still got more over there to be?
There's still more to take. I mean, we could work on that road for a long time. There's other roads that we should be working on and narrowing them up.
Including Conover?
Conover is one. I mean, it's got quite a bit of traffic. It's on the FM system, but it's way too wide to maintain the way it is.
Oh, man.
And you know, that's your worst one. That thing's 40+ feet wide and rated for pavement. The board at some point in the past was gonna wide gravel road that is a monster to maintain. You know, 28 feet, that's about as wide as the gravel should dare be. Because you get wider than that, and now it's just way too many passes for the blade. And, you know, you take 300 ton to the mile on a 24-foot wide road versus 300 ton to a mile on a 30-foot wide road, you're not getting the same amount of coverage for stone. It just, we've slowly been kind of trimming some of them down, but we've had a couple roads where we've when we redid the bridge over the Turkey down there, that's where we were gonna get the material to build the abutments up, and that didn't go over well. The public was really upset about it, and the board said, okay, we're not gonna do that, and they should have, but
what
that was their choice.
that's up for,
There's, I mean,
is
there's,
that section in between the railroad crossing and that
yeah,
cut across? So
it's wider than it should be. I wouldn't say that's at the top of the list, the ones you should probably going after. There's a lot of others that are wider that we.
I was just looking at it, if there was a possibility someday we were gonna raise that cut across road where you could take the fill off that stretch and haul it in there.
Two others in that area that you could do that with. Conover's not that long with the hull either, so.
We're gonna be able to build up more of the shoulders along 14 before we do that project next year.
We'll get some of it. We're not gonna get them all. I mean, that's just the reality of it. There's just no way they're gonna get it all done, but they'll get more of it done as we have areas that be clean and narrow and, but they won't get the whole thing. There's just, that's a lot of material to do that.
Is there a chance that down there about north of the mill where Brandon's doing that culvert extension right now, we can get some width in there? Cause I think, didn't we have a death back there a few years ago?
I'd have to go check the crash history on it. I can't say yea or nay to that.
Thinking that was
You very well could be right. I
Just
mean,
for said, I think there was one,
I can't tell
there was a
you.
death down there in
Yeah.
that one stretch, and it's really narrow.
Yeah.
But it's got some steep bank too, so it's tough.
Yeah, and part of when we narrow a lot of these, that gives us the latitude to put the better slopes on. Is just, that's our opportunity, so. Paul's working, they're starting the decking. They might be pouring that deck next week. Not that big of a bridge. They should be getting close to pouring that deck. And hopefully they'll be pouring that deck and we can get that one back open and have one more bad bridge out of our hair.
That'll take some pressure off Town Line Road.
Oh, yeah.
It'll be a lot-
Yeah, people are going
lot better
around.
on that.
That's just how it is. Tomorrow, the guys are gonna have some flagger training that we got for free out of LTAP. They're not gonna be excited about it because they get to sit inside and it's not their favorite thing to do, but they do it. Just so you guys are aware of that. Our tandem truck that's still not here yet moved from Don's truck down in Fairbank. And now it's up here at Truck Country. There's a light that came on when Don's truck was doing their test drives on it to make sure everything was working the way it's supposed to. Some light came on in the dash. Don's can't fix that. Repair that, and then hopefully it'll be delivered to us. We can get the radio in and get the stickers on it. And then that truck will go to Fort. That's where its home is supposed to be, so that's where it'll go. When the other ones come, they'll go to wherever they're supposed to go, but that's the first one that's coming. I got an email from our bridge inspector on Bridge 317A. It's an entrance bridge off the river road. It's not in the best of shape. There's one, maybe two landowners that access that off that bridge. We're gonna have to stick some money into it, and it's not gonna be easy. It's not a spot where I don't think we can make just a simple box culvert work. I think there's too much drainage in there. There's a pond up above it. We're gonna try to get it rehabbed, I guess is the best term, so we can keep it open for them. And but we have to meet with the inspector to get it, really understand what his major concerns are. What's the controlling factor on this bridge? I know it is in the substructure. Some of the piling are getting very bad, but I don't believe that's all of it. Even if we do fix that, I think the truss is gonna still limit what the thing can do.
Back there, or just.
There's one house back there, yep. Yep, and
What kind of bridge is that?
it's a pony. It's not a drive-through where, you know, you have the portals across the top, it's just the side. And I have no idea how old it is. I mean, it's old. I think it was moved there at some point in history. And it's just been left, but, there is a policy that previous boards enacted where any bridge that is partially or fully in the right of way belongs to the county. And the rationale behind it was, it's just like a driveway pipe. It's just a really huge structure versus a small pipe. If we don't do that and that bridge washes out, FEMA will not replace it. They've made that clear. That's why that policy went into place. And we have done this now already, where we had our entrance bridge wash out. And because that policy was in place, FEMA paid to put it back. It was kind of an easy fix. A camper, weird thing, camper got swept away, got wedged underneath it, lifted the bridge off the abutment, carried it downstream 200 feet and set it down. All we had to do was pick it up and walk it back. Now we redid the substructure because superstructure's gone. We might as well beef that up a little bit, but because we had that policy, FEMA, and we were only on the hook for 15. We lose this bridge out here, it's going to be hundreds of thousands of dollars and we're paying all of it. So that's why that policy went into place, but it handcuffs you that you're saying that is our bridge and we have to fix it. So it's, I guess you take the good with the bad with it, but, so far it's worked out more in our benefit than anything.
Basically, you called it an entrance bridge. It's like a driveway. It's what
Right.
an average person driving by would think it's a driveway, but it's really.
Well, it's a driveway that goes to a couple landowners, but we own the structure that goes.
How far is that?
Oh, man. It's probably 2-3 miles. If you go to the end of the Canoe Ridge Blacktop and turn north, it's probably 2-3 miles up the road. Somewhere in there. It's on the left side if you're heading north. But you can't miss it. It's there. And,
Before you start going up the hill.
Yep. yeah, that hill is all the drainage that comes down through that.
One thing, it was moved from Canoe.
It very well could have been. I don't have,
That's where it came.
I don't have a document to tell me where it came from. I just know it's there, so. Budget amendment for Ben, I'll have that done here. We have to have it by Friday, correct? That'll be done before Friday, so. Other than that, guys are hauling dirt, they're hauling rock, they're blading. Spring is finally here, I think, and we can move forward with spring, so. You guys have anything else?
They're gonna do the 410s.
Up to,
I'm in favor of it.
I would say, yeah. Whenever they,
We're gonna do 410s.
like they have them during the summer.
Have they been productive on the 410 schedule?
not as productive as they should be.
So why would we do that?
I've
They
had
want to be
conversations
productive
with
as
them
possible.
many times that they hold that in their hands. The whole idea is to cut down on the dead time and the deadhead time.
That's right.
And, you know, when they're still not getting out like they should, and I mean, talk to Jeff about it. He's the one that sees it every day and he's not excited about it.
How many days did it rain on a Thursday last summer and then we couldn't get out Blade Friday because nobody was working?
I don't know. I've never put a lot of stock in that argument. Just, I mean, if it rains every night on a Thursday night, and these are old numbers, but, we did it for 17 weeks. Thursday night, and we could have gone 10 weeks before we're even beginning to touch the efficiency we gained by going to the 410s. But if they're not getting out and making use of it, or they're driving back to the shops, and that was an issue last Thursday. And
And unlike years ago, this is no longer part of the union contract. It's really just a scheduling choice up to the engineer.
if the guys said they didn't want them, I would not impose them on them.
None of the rest of the county has Fridays off, right?
Not to my knowledge. I don't know what the other departments do.
So
And if productivity goes down with it, why would we do that?
It hasn't been what I think it should be.
Okay.
I mean, you can, you know, let them know we're gonna try this and we don't see it. They're gone. He's made that clear.
wouldn't we trust the engineer and people in charge to choose the hours? Why would we say 410s?
I don't
They
know.
think 5's are better.
I'm not gonna micromanage Lee and Jeff.
No.
Well, you guys.
Well, that's why I said we shouldn't be micromanaging. They
No.
But if they can do, if it's a matter of going and talking to your crews and say, hey, look, it's dropping, you're at risk of not getting the 410s, and they're used to having it how many years we've been doing that, Lee?
Oh, quite a
Forever.
few, quite a
It's a long
few.
time,
Yeah,
you know, and if we don't, if that doesn't help, if that harms morale issue and makes it worse, I'm in favor of going with it.
you know, they've
Yeah.
been told every year, you guys hold this in your hands.
Yeah,
I mean, that's, if you don't make it work,
see, because if you're not deadheading back to, if you get cut one day of deadheading out,
I mean,
that's an
it-
automatic
it's the
efficiency.
nature of the business. You lose a little bit on the start and the stop of every day. You lose a little bit on when you break in the middle of the day. I'm not accusing them that they are blatantly doing this all the time, but we're starting to see that those breaks get longer, those lunches get longer. They're driving back to the shops. They're not getting out as fast as they should. And I mean, when it's an hour and that machine finally leaves the shop, I have a hard time with that.
That's happening on an 8-hour day though right now.
Yeah.
Right, so why do we wanna
So
take
why would you
another
make it
day of
worse?
being on the road and,
A day less on the roads. One less hour there, times 30.
Lee, I'm not gonna begin to micromanage what you do. You're hired to run the roads.
like I said, the only
You, Jeff.
efficiency is their deadhead time.
I guess I'm in favor of the 410s.
Yeah, let's see. I think it's a management issue if you get them out of shop.
Yeah, but are the roads in better shape if they go from Thursday
They're
to
using-
Monday without, if it rains?
We haven't had, like Lee just said, it's not very many times that's happened.
Historically, that has not been an issue. Could it be this summer? Absolutely, maybe Thursday night is the every rain we get.
It's a roll of the dice.
Yes, it is.
How are your Thursday and Mondays, vacation and sick leave? Have you seen anything in that?
You know, when we go to the 410s, they treat Thursday the same as they treat a Friday on 5/8. You know, it's human nature. What day does everybody want to take off? They take off early on Friday. So when we work 410s, they do it on a Thursday. It's just
That's
the
even
human
more.
nature. Yeah.
I think the point is though, it isn't really, because it's not in the contract anymore. I mean, it's really up to Lee. He could have some of the shops go to 410s and some of them not,
I
or
don't
he
want to
could.
do that.
I'm just saying, you could have it be this week is 410s, and next week is 5/8, and it could rotate. That's really,
That's really unfair to them
Yeah.
to jump back.
it's up to you, up to the engineer to decide
That's
how.
part of your job.
Yeah.
You run the.
Yeah, I mean, the 410 have been doing it.
I don't think changing it is a wise idea. If it doesn't work, then cut it off.
Bring it back for
Well, but-
Bring it
discussion.
back to the 5/8.
Well, they've seen it not
They're
working.
telling you that.
They've seen it not working.
Productivity.
So at what point do we cut it off?
That's up to, they can report back and talk about it.
So
But
that's why we should defer to him then. If he
we
wants.
are, but we've been doing this for years, Mark. We're making a decision not to change to.
Let's just stop and just take a pause.
They got our.
Our engineer and our head foreman have said it's not as productive. We're deciding that we should do a 5-day. Is that what I'm hearing? I don't want to micromanage what,
Pretty much in favor of 4 10-hour days.
Yeah.
All the
You
other
got some.
surrounding counties.
Tell me he
Howard
does
County,
them.
everybody
Say
does
it
it.
does.
I'm leaving it up to the department head.
I'm just
It's
saying.
his
we
job.
should defer to
Clayton
him.
was doing them, then they quit doing them, but I don't know if they've gone back to doing
I
them.
think they were gonna go back.
Yeah, I just know that they quit for a while and
And we quit for a while and then about 10 years ago.
Yeah.
There was 3 or 4 years where the board had other opinions. Then they
Yes.
quit for a while and then they went back.
then they went back. And that was.
Yeah, it used to be that they sent a request and you had to officially answer from the board. Now it's really just a scheduling.
And who is in charge of scheduling for the departments?
That'd be me.
Well, I'd be disappointed if it doesn't get put into effect.
I want the
Yeah,
best
I would say-
productivity we can have, and I'm leaving that up to you.
I can discuss it with the foreman and
See what they said.
That'd be in favor of going.
Yeah, see if it, I would be in favor of it, because I hate to see. I don't want to affect morale either, because that'll just make it just worse. Not a good thing.
okay, we'll have that discussion.
Good idea.
Anything else?
Sounds like the tail wagging the dog to me.
So we had that spot on the pole or block to blacktop.
Yeah,
I told Jeff about that, yeah,
yeah,
breaking away.
which, yeah, unfortunate. That's not what I hoped had happened, but
Yeah.
some of those shoulders are soft. They should be wider, but they're not. It's just the reality of it.
And then I met with Isaac and Jeff last Friday morning at the auction dump site. And they're gonna take care of that building that's on site.
Yeah.
The demolish of that. And there's a couple, old foundation type things where satellite dishes were on there where the concrete is down in the ground, so they'll, I believe they're bringing in an excavator.
Yeah, they're gonna have to try to.
Yeah, because the foundation for that shed looks pretty sound.
Yeah.
So they're gonna do that and clean all that up. They were gonna get a hold of Sean and
Oh,
see how quickly they had to do that. So the way it sounds there, that some of those things from Raycom they're getting the stuff in, so they want to start hauling it out to on-site locations too. So that's why,
well, if they can have everything dropped, it's just
yeah.
Easier.
way easier instead of having to move things twice.
And that's why they're trying to expedite the process.
Which, yes, and actually, this is probably the best time to have us do these oddball things, because we're transitioning into summer. We're not fully there yet, but we will be shortly.
Is there any more info on that inquiry about the Turkey River Bridge down there in Fort? Or is that just still kind of
I've
pertinent?
tried to get a hold of him a couple times. They have not bailed on me. I talked to DOT, so DOT is aware that they really put forward this interest, but if we can't get anything out of them with the timetable, and maybe the timetable wouldn't be something you guys are willing to live with. He just, I cannot get a hold of him. And I'm not gonna say I've called him 100 times, that's not the case, but it does need to be, come to a conclusion as to what's gonna happen with it, because eventually that thing's gonna fall. And then we have
Yeah,
to come
then
down.
we got nuts, yeah.
Yeah, if we can get them to respond so we don't have to pay to take it down, that would sure be nice.
It would be very helpful, yep.
Or do it with scrap side, that helps too.
Mhm.
Anyone have anything else, really?
No.
All right, well, I'll just leave you with this. This is my resignation as county engineer. You can read it, you can look it over. Let me know what you think. County attorneys are made aware, DOT is aware, and, hopefully you can find someone who,
Lee, thank you for 22 years of stellar service.
yep, you're welcome.
Copy of it.
Yeah.
Not
I'd
more.
like a copy.
Yes, please.
Congratulations, boys.
What?
I'm ashamed. You don't micromanage departments. Just don't micromanage that department.
You had,
It's kind of fitting, Shirley, coming from someone that was doing that at recycling.
17 months working with the attorney general or the county attorney. That discussion is not for this meeting. It's not on the agenda. The engineer's time is on the agenda, and I'm ashamed. I'm ashamed of this. 22 years of service. You already lost a stellar roadside manager, now you've lost
I don't
a
think that's
stellar
on the,
engineer.
it's not on the
We're in the,
agenda. No, that was Lee Bjerke roadside. She's not here for.
I'm here and I'm a supervisor and the community is here and
It's
I'm
not on the
ashamed.
agenda.
I'm ashamed of this.
you're welcome to your own feelings, Shirley.
Thank you. And this is a matter of public record?
I don't know. That's what
We'll
I,
ask
we
you.
should ask Andy.
And you'll have to know.
What do we have for consent agenda, Ben?
I have the minutes from the last meeting and a fireworks permit.
I'd move to approve the consent agenda.
Just so you know, the fireworks permit is Bob Carlin. He does one every year. So, and he has all of his paperwork in order, licensure and everything, insurance.
Second.
We have a motion and second to approve the consent agenda. Is there any further discussion? If none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, the same. Motion carried unanimously. I'm bribing me, are you here?
No, that's that $20 is the fee to get a fireworks permit.
Get a permit.
Yeah,
Who the heck would ask for permit, how much insurance?
I think it's $500,000, but
Something like that.
Yeah.
Might even be a million.
it might
So is
be.
there a day limit on how many days they can use it?
Yeah, this is specifically for a certain display. It's 500,000 minimum. He's got 4 million. Most of the places you can, where you buy the display
Oh, you
fireworks,
buy
the
it.
bigger ones will also sell you insurance at the time to cover that display, so. And the Iowa law does provide for the smaller fireworks, the consumer without a permit. But if you do it outside the allowed time, or you do the big ones, you have to get a permit.
Is that just for one specific day?
One specific date, so yeah, so he has he has to draw a map of the shoot site and meet certain safety requirements and so on, and provide insurance and a license for pyrotechnics license and so on.
Oh,
They can include a rain date, can't they?
Yes, yeah, there is a rain date. This is the rate, there is one rain date allowed, and this is for June 3rd with rain date June 4th, I think is the way that's set up. Approximate start time 9:45, approximate end time 11. Anyway.
We were going to attend that Spectrum meeting that was supposed to be today. It's not on the agenda.
I don't know that I ever, did I
I
confirm
think you
that?
may have been,
Did we confirm that, like maybe the day I wasn't here?
I think so.
Oh,
I called them and we can schedule.
It's
okay,
okay.
okay.
So is there a date that if you guys would want to do that, to pick out quick?
Not the 22nd, we have department heads at 1:30, so you can do the 9th or 8th or the 15th.
15 would be better for me. I'll be here for part of the meeting on the 8th, then I have to do the rest of it by Zoom. I've got to catch an airplane flight on Monday the 8th.
15th at the end of the meeting.
That would,
Sorry, I missed that.
No, it's,
But yeah,
it just proves you're human.
it must have been Tony.
And I'll check with Mike Merrick to make sure that was with them.
Yeah, it looks like it wasn't for me too. All right, next on the agenda, 10 o'clock, public hearing, Mark Schluter rezoning request. Tony, what do you have on that? See,
Morning, so I received a phone call from Travis Schluter. They're withdrawing their request, their rezoning request on this
okay,
application. So I left it on the agenda because the public notices were already sent out and published in the papers, so if anybody logged on at this time or showed up, this is the public hearing, there is something to decide.
Okay. Thank you.
You bet, thank you.
Do we have any committee reports though?
No.
Well, there is one thing came up in the Iowa Workforce Development. They're talking about, in fact, you might, wouldn't have affected you, Mark. There was a high voltage transmission line from Mason City down to near Davenport to service the renewable energy in that area up there to the north to be able to market, because it's an excess to be able to market into the Chicago marketplace where they have a requirement of a certain percentage of renewable energy. And it's going to go via was it Great Southern or the
Along the railroad
one of
tracks.
the railroad tracks? Yeah, railroad tracks and down through the state highway right of ways, and it's gonna be a buried line of DC, the new technology of DC
Yeah.
current. Probably start, if they get all ducks lined up, maybe in 2025, and it'll take about 4 years to complete.
That's one going through
Or, I think it's going through 4.
Fort Dana.
Caution.
I've got
It pretty much follows the railroad.
it.
There's a over in, I think it's in Clayton County that it veers off of the railroad tracks for a
For
while.
a little bit, but it's pretty, yeah, there's a bad spot in there they didn't want to go through apparently. They talked about that. So I haven't seen the map on it yet. I'm trying to get a copy.
Yeah, they've had it out for a couple of years because like
We talked about it.
it goes past right past my place. So they, sent the $50 check 2 years ago already for easement, but they've had some real delays in the ability to get everything put together.
So it goes through, I guess, Department of Energy financing or something like that, so federal financing, but there is, there's probably gonna be some construction jobs associated with this impact for us in Winneshiek County. That's about all that's out right now.
Okay. Well, 10:02. Next up. Roadside Management Program. I can't imagine what more you'd have that's new, but go ahead.
I'll have a comment first. Has to do with your, attempt to discuss the engineer's resignation this morning, and she was cut off. And there was still more time on the clock for that subject. And I have a question about, if things have to be strictly followed on the agenda. On February 6th, when the roadside management was terminated, was that on the agenda?
Roadside maintenance was on the agenda.
Was terminating the program on
It
the
said
agenda?
update.
Well, that was, okay, that wasn't significant enough. That the subject was gonna be termination to put on the agenda. That just,
You want to continue on with what?
I'll go ahead with the subject. I came to speak on it. But I couldn't pass that up.
Here away.
I have two matters to address this morning. One has to do with the proposal to rent the 10-acre field with an enriched mix of prairie plants. The other has to do with continuation of the Integrated Roadside Vegetation Management Program, the IRVM. I appreciate the opportunity to speak again. Thanks for approving the budget, to include an IRVM for next year. And in fact, a roadside management allocation too for a salary, and I appreciate that. But now I'll address the 10-acre field. This proposal that it be rented, I think it's a rental that's in question. Whether it should be rented to a private party. The 10 acres has been managed by the Winneshiek County Integrated Roadside Vegetation Management Program as a source of seed for use in the roadside program. It was planted by Corey Meyer using seed from multiple sources to enhance the seed mixture, making it suitable for a variety of soil and other conditions. The greater the diversity of species, the greater the number of seedbed conditions that will be accommodated. The more suppliers of seed, the more likely there will be stipulations on its use. In other words, there are probably strings attached to the seed in the 10-acre field. I don't know of anyone except Corey Meyer or Todd Hill who would know of the stipulations, if any. I understand that often the providers of seed expect a portion of the harvested seed to be returned to them. Or if grant money was used, the purchase of the seed that is planted in the 10 acres, there may be other strings attached that would only show in the record or in the minds of Corey Meyer or Todd Hill. Have you looked through the IRBM records to see if there are any limits on the use of the 10-acre seed plot? The job description for the Winneshiek County Roadside Manager says the roadside manager shall administer, develop, plan, conduct a program of vegetated habitat management that will promote desirable vegetation, etc., and manage those areas of native vegetation. The key word here is manage. Manage those areas of native vegetation. It says nothing about the Board of Supervisors managing the native vegetation or the Board of Supervisors entering into an agreement for others to manage the vegetation. I doubt that the donors of the seed and the money for the 10-acre field would be satisfied with having a third party with unknown qualifications and no knowledge of their agreements administering the seed plot in which they have an interest. Native plant seed is very expensive, often hundreds of dollars for a pound of seed. The providers of seed and money for the 10-acre field no doubt expect that their agreements with Winneshiek County will be honored. As the Board of Supervisors for Winneshiek County, is it your place to micromanage the county's roadside program on matters that are within the scope of its authority? It's especially troubling to me and others that a majority of the current Board of Supervisors are apparently intent on eliminating the roadside management program or managing it with little understanding of what's involved. It is not your place as supervisors to make uninformed decisions that are appropriate with the engineer's resignation. It's especially egregious that your primary target is roadside management. You're taking 10 acres of seed source that could seed many acres of roadside vegetation and leasing it to an outside private person. That's the equivalent of you telling a county engineer to get by with one less road grader so that you could lease it to a private contractor. How would that go over with your constituents? Why is it any different for a roadside manager? You've already driven off one of the best roadside managers in the state of Iowa, and I might add, a county engineer. Please stop meddling with what's left of the roadside program. If the Board of Supervisors considers to go forward with a plan to lease the 10 acres, I would like the proposed lease to be available for public inspection before the county commits to the lease.
It is.
It is. Okay, it is. Thank you. You've made it clear that your goal is to terminate the roadside program. On February 6th, Corey Meyer, roadside manager, attended your meeting to give an update on the program. Out of the blue, it was moved by Vic with a no apparent hesitation, seconded by Kelsey, to terminate the roadside management program due to funding concerns effective immediately. The motion carried with Vic, Kelsey, and Langrick voting aye, Vermace and Paulette voting nay. The matter was not scheduled for a hearing at which parties would have had an opportunity to present their viewpoint. The state DNR, the DOT, and the Tallgrass Prairie Center and other experts would have had an opportunity to present their perspective, and citizens could have expressed their support or opposition, as should happen in a democratic system. I have no doubt that Winneshiek County is struggling to operate within its means, given the financial restrictions imposed by state government. No one knows how long state politicians will stick to the strategy of squeezing local government and school districts to death. What Winneshiek County is experiencing is the strategy of consolidating political power and money into the state legislature, and especially the governor's office. Be that as it may, it's my hope and desire that Winneshiek County can weather this financial crisis until such time as local control returns. As to the immediate future, I would like to see the Board of Supervisors take a stand to preserve what remains of the Integrated Roadside Vegetation Management Program. It's now included in the budget. Preservation of the program should not be a cultural issue. It is scientifically proven to be far superior to the traditional approach of broadcast spraying to kill forbs and legumes, allowing only shallow rooted grasses to survive in the ditches. Unquestionably, the county needs to keep the IRBM program alive. The Board of Supervisors should resolve to continue support of IRBM. Tallgrass Prairie Center on how the IRBM can continue under its present conditions. The Board of Supervisors should contact the Iowa Department of Transportation and the Iowa Department of Natural Resources so that they know our county is committed to follow through with our commitment. We need to keep in place the progress that Corey Meyer, Todd Hill, and Lee Bjerke have made. Keep the equipment, seed, and buildings as they are. Seek assistance from community groups. Educate the public. Drop the culture war and seek assistance from the grassroots. I'm sure there are groups and individuals who would help. As I mentioned earlier, I have a problem with the procedure by which the majority of Board of Supervisors used to eliminate the Integrated Roadside Vegetation Management Program. Elimination of a worthwhile long-range roadside program should not occur in the manner as it occurred at the Board of Supervisors meeting on February 6th. Not in a democracy where political leaders are expected to get input from the citizenry and experts if the decision calls for expertise. I encourage you to act responsibly and preserve the IRBM program in the best way possible for the long term. Are there any questions? Okay. I can see Mr. Langridge's a little tired of my coming to these meetings on of the board each week, but I want to make it. I really believe it's a huge mistake, and I hope you're open to considering that it is a superior program to having the, basically brome grass and other shallow rooted grasses and ditches. When the funneling of the water off from the crown of the road into the ditch, the waterways out of all of the fields come into the ditch. And when we, especially on the terrain we have here in Northeast Iowa, that water accumulates and keeps getting more and more as it goes on toward the river. The deep rooted plants in the bottom of the ditch will bend over and just form a layer on top of each other, and the water goes right over the top. The roots, you saw how deep some of the roots go by the illustration last week. And so the water can't cut it out and just start eroding it away, picking up chemicals and all that going down the ditch. I remember when I was in college and some of the guys I knew had a good summer job because they were going to spray the ditches for the counties. They'd get on a trailer behind a truck pulling them down the road, just sprayed the whole ditch, you know? And that would kill, that spray mixture was designed to go broadleaf weeds, forbs, and leave the grass alone because there basically was only a couple of kinds of grasses that were used. But that wasn't habitat or anything. And I don't think you should write it off. I think it's a quick commitment we should make.
Well, it's very obvious that you feel very strongly about that.
Right.
And I respect that opinion that you have.
Do you believe,
Just-
Dan, I ask you a question. Do you believe that these grasses that in the historic way of managing these ditches was better than having it in native plants? And then if you think so, I'll ask you that why? And what information do you have about it?
This is strictly a cost saving measure on my part.
Everything is
In
not,
my acreage, I have honeybees. I planted wildflowers. I'm not this bad person that's out there against every wildflower or anything there is. It's almost completely the opposite. But on my acreage, if I don't have the money to plant the expensive wildflower seeds, I plant grass. That's where we're at. And I mean, this program, if you have the money to implement it exactly the way it should be, I believe it could be a success. But it's come to the point with all the cuts and everything that we have, that it's impossible to run it the way it needs to be run to be successful.
You just
how
voted.
about the letters from all the engineers and roadside managers tell you that's not true? There are people that
I can't speak for their counties, their funding, what they have for money, but I can speak for what we do not have.
We're responsible for this county. You're right. You know, you're right in the volunteer program. Dallas County has a volunteer program of people that adopt roadside and work with that. They've had that going for quite a number of years. They have about 50 miles of their roadsides that they've now been able to get volunteers to work on, and different groups that will take charge of an area. Now they don't have as many miles of roads as we do. I think they have somewhere near about 950 miles of roads. And that's how they're managing part of theirs. Dallas County is one of the counties that gave us some of the seed equipment that we have out there. The seed cleaner, the bagger, the drill. Trying to remember if there was anything else.
Multiple.
Fayette County is another example though. In Fayette County, they have a lot more miles of road than we have here in Winneshiek County. And, you know, the county engineer says, no, it's gonna save them money in the long run.
They have one person who manages that, one person in that department.
No, they don't have two. They have one that's in the engineering department and one that's under the county conservation board, but they have two.
It's county conservation board. We don't have any other help from the county conservation board.
Well, I know, but that
That's what
county's,
I'm talking
they structure it
budget
different.
wise, they're paying for one person to do that
You all
job.
just approved a budget that includes the IRBM program, so I don't know what you're arguing that point on.
Yeah,
You still
are
haven't
you planning
finished your
to,
numbers.
are you planning to hire a manager?
No, we approved the budget for money to be put into the secondary road fund. How it's dispersed from the secondary road fund.
I thought it said the
It's-
program would go inside the engineers.
It is.
It is.
And not that the money would, it was that the department would operate within the engineering department. That's my understanding. But it's my understanding the roadside program was budgeted for. What is this talk
States nothing,
about?
there's nothing stated in the secondary road budget about roadside program.
It is, in the
That's
ordinance,
because you didn't do it till last week.
and it's in the ordinance that we're operating under right now.
In the secondary road budget.
It's in the secondary roads. It's under that.
The ordinance is in there. In that sheet that he handed out.
The ordinance is under the secondary roads. It talks about the engineer and a roadside manager.
That's the engineers in charge. We don't even need a roadside manager.
We don't need a roadside manager to begin with.
You do,
No, we do not.
it says right in the, and I can't find it right.
I will
now.
ask Andy.
It'll
when
be
he
on the
shows up.
agenda for next week.
I will ask Andy when he shows up.
But the letter I got from him says we do not.
You don't put me in it yet. Thank you.
Miscellaneous 1020. First of all, we, have a letter of support for Decorah's cultural or an entertainment district application. It's just a formality.
Yeah, there's no commitment or money attached. It's just a letter of support that they're submitting for this designation.
You need a motion.
Yes.
I move to approve our signing of that letter. Supporting it.
We have a motion and a second for the letter of support for Decorah's cultural and entertainment district application. Is there any further discussion? If none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimous. Next up, under the miscellaneous, action on use of remaining ARPA funds, which we're gonna put toward the,
911 tower. This is an updated form sheet from last week. Anybody who was here last week, I passed out. I had a lot of copies. Not much has changed. I made a couple of corrections on wording and so on, but basically you have 165,000 and change right now that's uncommitted because of the savings that Paul Berlin reported back in was it January, February, about finding other funding for some of those flood reduction projects. Yeah, so that $75,000 line, that's the third one in the funded projects, that used to be around 300,000.
Yeah.
So that got lowered. You already spent some of that money on the 911 tower project to use to buy those properties. That's where we got the money for that. The two where the towers are going.
So that's like 225,000.
Yeah, but now you spent the 61. So I would recommend that if in barring different projects coming up, that you make some motion like that any remaining American Rescue Plan Act funds be committed towards the 911 tower project or something like that, so that
if the balance number changes.
if it changes as like I took my remainder out for the record scanning, but Jane is still looking at, she has some records that she's scanned, but if they could be added to that database, not have them, because they're already scanned, but it would take some administrative part to add them to the database. So she didn't want to turn the 8,400 back in, but say she spends 5,000 and she has 3,400, rather than coming here again and saying, what are we gonna do with this 3,400? If we just give it more of a blanket, anything left goes to the 911 tower, then we'll just roll with that.
Yeah.
Did the treasurer do all of the scanning in her department?
She didn't have any scanning. It was the recorder's office and my office. So my office, we have all of the, and I'll put the plug in here for people in the audience too, all of the supervisors minutes all the way back to the 1850s and 60s, and all of the land ownership transfers all the way back have been scanned. And so those that are typed, like the records were in computer print or typewriter print, are searchable, but most of the old ones are handwritten. So you have to go filter through them by date or things like that. But it's very much better access than what people used to have. Jane has done, in the recorder's office, has done the deeds and property transfers and records, but she did the oldest ones from the 1850s through the early 1900s, because those are the ones that she hadn't scanned yet. Then she stopped where she has scanned them, but they're available through the Iowa Land Records database or through internally within our databases, those kinds of things. And so now she's going to see if those can be added to this ARPA searching engine so that people don't have to go different places. And that's
Even if
where
they've been scanned, it should be a relative.
it's easier. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's much easier process. The scanning process took them weeks. They're very beautiful images. I mean, you can read the images just as clear as if you were standing looking at them. So that's really nice. But that's also was the expensive part of it is to have the team here going through those records.
Yeah, and the Costello sewer project could be another one. Where
There might be some left.
Could be some, but
Yep.
yeah. I'd make a motion that any excess ARP money be used for the tower project.
Second that.
We have a motion and second. With any excess ARP money will go toward the 911 towers. Is there any further discussion? None, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried unanimously.
It's just a little deal on that. They're looking, they may finish, they could be all done this year if everything keeps going the way it is.
Yeah, they look like it might be able to complete by this fall.
Fall. Yeah.
And our payment plan, just so everyone remembers, is that we have that the Raycom, who's doing the work, has a contract with the county that we're paying. We paid $500,000 last summer as the project started. And then we pay $900,000 a year for the next 3 years.
So it's July 1st will be the first.
Yep. And so we'll use whatever this balance is at that time, we'll put towards it. And then the rest,
On top of the 9.
or no, I would say it towards the 900,000.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
I didn't know what you.
That'll help save you some general fund money then to use for some other project. That's exactly the type of project
There you go.
that I have used as an example to our legislators when they would have asked about the new budget restrictions. I tell them that this is the type of project that if those restrictions were in place, would cost the county more money. Because we would have had to go through a bonding process, we would have had to pay a financial advisor and bonding attorney, issue bonds, we'd be paying interest. Because we couldn't raise under the new budget plans, we wouldn't be able to raise that 900,000, but since we've got it in place now, it's protected as part of the base year, but in the future, if something like that came along, we wouldn't be able to just do it. We'd have to, the bond levy is not restricted under the restrictions of those budgets, but it costs more. So.
Yeah, I talked with Sean Snyder and both he and Mike Clemish about the bill going through about the EMS 911. And it may or may not, it's been passed by the Senate, I think, and not by the House, and there's a reconciliation, and it may possibly get acted on this week before they close on Thursday, up in the air. And then he said he's not sure, he thinks maybe that the property tax bill will make it through this year. Oh, well, maybe. There's
a lot of reconciliation.
A lot of reconciliation has to go on. Then the concern is next year they're gonna turn around and go after the supplemental fund levy. Things may get more bleak if that happens.
Yeah. I don't know what
Who ran on that campaign? Nobody.
Yeah, I don't know what that end game is.
I don't know.
I mean, the supplemental levy is so restricted on what we can use it for. I don't know what they can really attack in it other than,
Get any more?
yeah. I mean, I know there was some talk about the district court portion of the supplemental levy, but ours is like a few $1,000s and it has to do with administrative things. I don't know if there's some counties that are abusing that they, or think that legislators think they're abusing it or what, but why that was mentioned, but.
So that these towers are part of, if they did that consolidate or separated, or they'd have their own, EMS had their own.
No, these towers are part of, emergency management is separate from 911, although it's the same players. Big extent of it. 911 is a commission that provides the connectivity between the law enforcement and the public, basically. And then emergency management runs the dispatch center. So they're utilizing the 911 equipment to get people to call in or whatever.
So these
But
towers are 911, not EMS.
But they
Right.
fall under the
Yeah.
scope of this bill.
Yeah. And 911 has such limited funding. The only funding they have is what comes through. It used to be $1 per line landlines, and now there's a fee on wireless, but then that gets split up differently. And so that's their only funding, and their funding actually keeps shrinking each year rather than.
Landlines are hard
Yeah.
enough, so. That's.
So they don't, there's not enough money and
They're coming in.
this is an issue statewide. We're not the only county. Most counties actually did go to bond issues to upgrade.
They're like
911 tower.
$10,000 bond issues to
Million.
their tower.
Yeah.
Yeah, 8 to 10 million in their bond issue to. Just
So we've been proactive enough that we've added like the one up by the John Deere across from across from John Deere up there. We added some tower connectivity when that was purchased, but
Been around with REC down by Jackson by the school. Right?
yeah.
Morning, Andy.
Morning. They're delayed and took into account the wind.
It's
Well, it's 10:30 next on the agenda. Andy Vandermountain, County Attorney. First off, the opioid settlement services grant resolution.
I presented out yesterday, and basically, I think primary purpose of this is to alert potential grant applicants to the availability of that summit for as a resource. And then I would say that we probably need to put together a schedule at some point in terms of the timing for submitting applications, the criteria for filling grant requests, that type of thing. And I am not available to go to the summit. My understanding is that Shirley, you were planning to go.
I can go, I'm registered.
Okay. If
I'm
I
waiting
could
down.
Visit with you when you get
That'd be
back, maybe we can try to put together a timeline and have something a little firmer in terms of getting applications in and funding out. It seems to me that, what are we at, about 65,000 right now?
Sounds about right.
And
We only spent 3,000 or 4,000 on the
Narcan.
Narcan, not Loxodone or whatever.
And long-term is 300,000 something.
Right, so I mean, I would think that in August, we've got the next settlement amount will come in. You know, it may not be a large amount, but just say that there's 75,000 there for grant funding available this year. You guys, you need to decide if you're gonna make it a renewable thing for a program for some continuity purposes over the years, or if you're gonna go through the process annually to pick a. Yeah. So,
And then I read through this and just, if I can sum up the way I read, nothing in here requires them to do anything. It basically sets up we're planning to do this. You should maybe consider this program. Here's about how much money we're gonna have, and we're gonna do grants in the summer, but it haven't really guaranteed anything yet. Is that the way I read that?
correct.
Okay.
Yes, I mean, I think we need to firm up some
Yeah.
dates as we get moving forward. I think we need to get an application process in place. This does not do that, but this gets the information out on the summit. And, you know, it's your intent to do this, which we really don't have a choice. If you want to keep the funds, you're gonna have to do it. So, you know, it's not spelling out anything that you don't have the obligation for already.
Can some of these funds be targeted towards the veterans programs for the drug issues?
If they meet the criteria in the list of uses. So if there's a provider out there who says, yeah, I think we can do medically assisted treatment programs, if there's somebody with an opioid addiction who's a veteran and they submit an application and that's what you decide as a board that you want to do, sure. But it needs to spelled out in some agreements.
Would anyone like to take action on this resolution?
I'd like to move to accept the resolution as written.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second to approve the opioid settlement services grant resolution. Is there any further discussion? All right, if none, Shirley,
Aye.
Paul,
Aye.
Nick,
Aye.
Steve? I also pass unanimous, so. Legal questions regarding agenda and other issues? Well, I would be the first one to come right out here and say that maybe we should put something on the agenda to see whether we want to retain Lee for his 60 days that he's offered or the 2 weeks. Do you believe that would be the correct way to do it for next week?
Yeah, I think that's a decision that you need to make. You may also, depending on which way you go with that, you may need to, have an appointment, for an interim while you're looking for a replacement engineer. And I think you've got somebody who's licensed that can do that. And then you can start your process of searching for full-time.
So I think we should put that on the agenda for next week. Madam?
Is
Yep,
there?
if you guys are
wanna
okay
help
with
me
that?
The wording on how that should be listed.
Is the letter shareable if Lee gives okay for that?
Lee gave me the okay for that, and it is public.
It's a public letter. Thank you.
But I did make a few copies that can set over here.
What have you got to say?
Please speak up.
I don't know that it, we want to put it on the website. I don't,
The letter of resignation is a public document now. Lee has given permission for it to be a public document. And we'll make them available after the meeting.
put a few here and then make more copies of some of them.
And then my take on that email you sent us on the roadside management. Is it that we do not need a manager? Is the engineer's responsibility as the ordinance is wrote?
And so Iowa code does not say that there is a requirement that there be a local manager for a local program. So next step, I looked at the ordinance, and the ordinance assigns that responsibility to the engineer, not to a local
Separate position.
right. So I think we are on the same.
Okay.
So it's up to the engineer to whether they hire or not a roadside manager.
Whoever they hire would still answer to the engineer. The engineer is responsible for that.
Right. Are you done with those questions?
Yeah.
I want to hear from the HR branch of our county, which is the county attorney's office. That's what we pay you to do. If there are complaints by the road crews about anything, they should first go to their supervisor foreman, correct? And if they don't get a good answer from the foreman, they should go to their department head, correct?
Process we follow.
And then the next step would be, according to last time we went through this, the next step should be to the county attorney as the HR branch of our county.
Correct.
Are you comfortable?
Say, Andy,
Correct.
you need to talk loud.
Thank you.
Other questions?
Yes, I do have one more. On the new 911 towers, there is a possibility of a company wanting to rent space on that. Where should that money be generated if that's so? Or does it end up?
Towers are owned by the 911 service board. I would think that would be the location for them. There's been discussion at those board meetings over the years about whether to compete with other private entities in terms of providing space on tower. There has been discussion regarding the potential interference, depending on what is going up on the tower with 911 communications. So I think that would be, those are items that would need to be brought to the service board Depending on what the revenue stream is and that type of thing, it does seem to me that there would be room to utilize those funds for part of the reduction in the cost of the financing. That's county's going forward. But I caution you that there are some issues that go beyond, can we hang our stuff on the tower?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That are a matter of policy and a matter of, impacts of the technology that will be going up.
Yeah, I don't think that would become a problem. We're discussing it with Chopper and he thought, that, that's no issue as far as that part goes, with the interference of the signal or anything like that.
We probably want to go through Raycom and that.
Yeah.
Good point. It's just a quick question. That just
Yeah.
came up during our meeting on last Thursday. Friday, whatever.
I mean, you have
Both
this,
days.
you have this commitment of the 900,000 for 3 years for the current tower project, but you also paid through Sean's budget $56,000 a year to help pay off the loan from the other previous projects.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's for another 7 or 8 years yet, I think. So
Yeah, it's, yeah.
so I mean, if there is some money that comes in, it might offset money you're already spending, is what I'm saying, rather than
Yeah, I was,
worrying about if it's county money. Well, it doesn't,
no, it was my question, whether if it can be funneled back into to pay for something like that, that would make complete sense. And that's big if yet, nothing set in stone, so. Anyone have anything else for Andy?
All right. Thank you.
One thing, the previous presenter said something about,
Louder, please.
the previous presenter said something about the seeds that were used on this 10-acre plot and people had donated or supplied them. There could be some, and we're expecting.
My understanding is
You did
that
go back from him.
there is a restriction on the seed plots that are next to the Freeport shop and behind
That 9 acres.
Rotocast.
That 9 acres there.
Those two were restricted donations that would leave those plots in place. 10 acres up above was not. Or something like that.
Where did it come from?
That was state money that, I believe that's what he told me, was state money. And that did not have a restriction on it. Okay. All right.
Thank you, Andy.
Thank you, Andy.
Quick question, Shirley. What was it in the bills we paid last week, that $1,645 that you,
That was last year's Leadership Academy, 13-week online course, national program. Myself, Sean. Taking it. I would highly recommend it for everybody around this table.
Other matter. First judicial district is actually today at 11. There's looking to rehire somebody to replace the fellow that can left resigned after 27 years, something like that. So they kind of fast track interviews and stuff. So it was a lovely fact today. It's first one.
well, it's 10:45 next on the agenda, discussion of roadside management program.
And I put this on the agenda, so this is my time right now. first question is the same question you've had since February 13th. Where are your numbers for the cost savings? So you brought those today by any chance?
Same.
No,
answer,
Mark?
Shirley.
No, same
No.
answer I
The
gave you.
same answer, Shirley.
Out of your head?
No,
Same
no.
answer.
We directed the county engineer to give us a breakdown of. the
Stop right,
costs.
nope,
Yes,
stop
we
right
did.
there. No, stop right there. You quoted $400,000 before you asked for
I'm
it.
not talking
Nope,
about that.
not gonna let
I'm
you go
talking
there.
about-
I'm dealing with
I
facts.
don't care if you want to let me go or not, Shirley. That's
I
not the
do.
issue.
I put
This is
this
a
on the
discussion.
agenda.
This is a
I
discussion,
put this
Shirley.
on the
This is
agenda.
a
The
discussion.
question
This
was,
is-
where did
it
your
doesn't-
$400,000 come from?
It says.
You do not know. It came out of your head by looking at the budget.
That's
That was
right.
before you talked to Lee, actually, you haven't talked to Lee or Corey yet, any of you, about these numbers. You've never walked in that office over there yet. So don't give me that. You asked for those numbers after you quoted that cost savings, and you have yet to
We
produce that
asked the
detail. and You
engineer
have yet to
for the
produce that
detail,
detail.
Shirley.
You need to produce those details.
Is this, Mr. Chairman, is this a discussion or is this Shirley's own personal time on
I
the
asked for
agenda?
this time on the
Well,
agenda.
it does not say
Doesn't say
Shirley
that.
or me's discussion.
Did you request it? No. Did you request it? No. Did you request it?
says-
No. Did
Obviously,
you
no
request
one
it?
did,
No.
Shirley.
I requested it.
That's fine.
That's
It's a
how it got on the
discussion.
agenda.
It says discussion,
So
Shirley.
you don't have your numbers. That's the question I just asked.
Still
The next
waiting for the
question is,
engineer to provide the
when
numbers,
we go
Shirley.
through the hiring of a new engineer who's in charge of the roadside management program, is your plan to micromanage our new engineer as well? Discussion.
Well, this was kind of abrupt. Didn't expect it this morning, so I don't know if there's any plans for anything going forward. That's why I'm having to put on the discussion up on the agenda for next week.
No plans. What's your answer?
I don't know how I'm supposed to make plans for something I did not know was gonna
That's
happen.
pretty hard, Shirley.
Okay, let me rephrase the question to make it easier for you. Is your plan as three people to let the tail wag the dog? Listen to road crew members about complaints, which you have done, and it's not acceptable, but each of you have done
Whoa,
it.
whoa, 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 whoa.
Nope,
I'm gonna answer
nope.
your statement right there, Shirley.
Great.
You say that talking to the road crews is not acceptable. I am
For
a,
2 hours at a time.
Shirley, I am a supervisor. Many of those men are also in my district. I have every right to go to the roadside shops, no different than if I go to any of the elected officials and talk to the staff to find out what's going on. Our responsibility as in the Board of Supervisors is to be the chief executive officers, the five of us that manage this county. You can't do it by sitting back at the table and just saying yes. There has to be accountability. There has to be issues. Now, if the men in the roadside crew,
Take my time
wait a
a
minute.
minute here.
This is not, there's no time limit on there, Shirley.
I asked if you're gonna micromanage
I'm
the
not talking
engineer
about
in the
that. You
roadside
made the
program.
statement
This
that
is
we don't
roadside
have the
program.
right to go and talk to the men in the departments, men or women. It doesn't matter. Did I go talk to the surveyor? Did I talk to the assistant engineer? Have I talked to other people? You bet I have, and I will
You talked to
continue
the
to.
engineer?
I've talked to the engineer in these meetings. Do I go into his office? I haven't had the need to do that.
Exactly. Have you
I've
talked to
been-
the roadside
No, let
program?
me finish, Shirley.
No, I'm
I
gonna finish my
respect-
question.
no,
I'm gonna finish my
You made a
question.
statement that I'm going to address, that I don't have the right to take and talk to the men in the shops. I got news for you. Shirley, have you been in the shops and you ridden in the snow plows and
Yeah.
so forth? You've been
Yeah.
in there too.
Yeah.
Are you telling me you don't have the right to do that?
I'm
Any
telling
different than
you,
I do?
don't Spend 2 hours in the shops listening to,
I haven't spent 2
ill-informed
hours.
crew members about how to run the engineer's program.
How do you know I spent 2 hours in there, Shirley? Because I'll tell you this, I have not. I went last week and talked to the roadside, the crew in Ridgeway. And you know what? I did spend time after the crew left to talk to the retiring roadside worker, Lewis. Talk to him about his time with retirement. Talk to him about what
Be
his
careful what
future.
you're talking to in an open meeting here. I have
Wait a minute.
roadside program on my agenda.
I'm
just
talking,
trying to
you
decide what you
addressed the
want.
question, Shirley.
Be careful.
You addressed the question. And I'm giving you an answer to your statement. You said I spent 2 hours in the,
Spent 2 hours in the shop. Specifically, did I
is there
say,
another supervisor who spent 2 hours in the shop? I haven't.
let's talk about roadside program management. My
Go on.
question is, will you be micromanaging any new engineer in his decisions or her decisions on how to run the roadside program and how to spend that money in the roadside program? What's your plan?
I explained to you just a few moments ago, it's kind of hard to come up with a plan when I did not expect anything like this to happen today.
Okay, had Lee not resigned today, what was your plan?
Do you need a plan for everything?
They have a plan. You guys went in and just threw a skunk on the dance floor, and now you're not answering for the mess you created. We've lost a roadside manager that was one of the best in the state. Now we've lost an engineer that was one of the best in the state, 22-year career for Winneshiek County, 22 years here. What do you have to answer for the mess you've created to this community?
Mess.
What's the end
Yes.
game?
That's your
We gotta
opinion,
get back
Shirley.
to getting the weeds out of the ditches. They've gotten so bad in the last 5 years.
Mark, tell me everything you know about the roadside program and the weeds, the native species in our prairie
I've
remnants.
got umpteen calls last year about wild parsnip. And he said.
And wild parsnip's not in state list, and they were spraying wild parsnip where they needed to.
No, they weren't.
He said
He said right here
he
twice.
said he
He
did
said
not
right here
have
twice.
to.
And said he didn't have to.
I would like to, this can be the public record. Everything you see blue here is what was taken care of in our roadside program by Corey. Everything you see in green is data marked. Wait, it's a GPS. It's also up there bigger if you want to see it. Everything in green is GPS marked and data points where they know where their noxious weeds are. Some of these might include wild parsnip. Everything blue has been done. That's where they're working so far. Vision and planning for the next several years
Lost
that
money.
will say, no, it will save us money. If you please read the information, quit ignoring facts. You guys are costing this county money right now. You know how much it's gonna cost to go through the process of hiring a new engineer? That's money.
Kind of like your.
To do it right, that's money.
$1,445 to attend a class that wasn't necessary.
That class helped me have the courage to stand up here today and be a leader in this community.
Oh,
That
yes,
class helped me
I'm
deal
sure.
with facts.
I'm sure.
I
All right,
only
let's get
deal
back to the
with
roadside.
facts. I'm showing you the facts of the roadside program right now. That's what we covered. The green is
How
a
many years?
GPS pinpoint. 5 years.
5 years, so it takes
Looks like
another,
half the
They
county.
covered the whole county in 5 years.
the blue is the part that was
The
free.
blue has been.
Green is
right?
the part they have on GPS pinpoint,
So what?
guys.
That's
It's
been
not-
sprayed.
That's been sprayed. Dan, doesn't that look like
That
District
hasn't been
4
sprayed yet.
and District 5?
It's
to you?
been identified and it's in their program to reach
So
all
it's gonna
these
take about
places.
10 years.
And if you
just
would
to get-
listen to the engineers and the roadside managers from 8 other counties, minimum, 2 of them are putting their roadside program back in because they realized it really was saving them money. Fayette County Engineer Joe Fance told you it saves us hundreds of thousands of dollars a year to have that program. I am not going to be gagged. I am not going to be quieted about the fact
Neither
here.
am
And
I.
this community deserves these facts, you guys.
Well, you've got them out there,
Well,
sure.
I'm gonna say if this is one of the best roadside management programs in the state, I feel sorry for the ones that are poor.
Tell me everything you need to know about roadside management, Dan. Tell me what you know about the prairie native species and how that works. Tell me all of your wisdom about the roadside program.
Well, and I stated when, Jim was here, I said, it's a program that may work if you have the money to fund it.
And we have the money to fund it. And
No,
yes, we do.
not.
Shirley,
That's
we have
why
got the
you're
worst
taking a
roads.
blind eye
Six
to how
counties.
much money goes into the roadside or
You
to
know
the
what?
secondary road
Last
fund.
week, 2 weeks ago, I think it was 2 weeks ago, I asked you for your numbers and you don't have numbers. Show me your numbers. Convince me, convince the community that it saves us money in the long run.
Well, if we go
You
back
haven't done that
to
yet.
Lee's report, there's nothing in there for the 2 buildings, the heating costs,
You
the
have not
cooling
produced
costs,
your
the
numbers yet.
electricity costs.
Sure.
All those are associated with the roadside maintenance department. None of those costs were in those figures that Lee gave us.
So we have 50 agreements in place with private landowners talking about Dallas County and their volunteers. We already have 50 signed up through this program in the first 5 years who are taking care of their ditches in partnership with the roadside program. I hope that that will continue.
Nobody's stopping that, Shirley.
So I guess my thing would be, we have previous to this program, even when I was a child, spray, mow, cut,
Did not work.
there's no end to it. It never gets any better. The program here, it's like insulating your house, you invest up front and you can save money over time.
Do you need the money
This-
to insulate the house?
Yeah, you do.
Correct.
And we're not putting that much more in. We lost an employee now, by not having a roadside manager. So somebody else is gonna have to pick that up off of the other crews, which sounds like they're overworked anyway. So we're gonna go out and spray. We're not gonna get further ahead. The costs are gonna go up. This is potentially a savings long-term for people. And I don't know why we would ignore the fact that other counties have presented facts and figures about how over time they are saving, including the cost of the people administrating the
Let's just
program.
put this in perspective. So if we put solar panels on every one of the county buildings to pay for the electric, it will pay down the road. Will it not? We will have to make lessen our costs.
Yeah.
Okay? How do you finance that? Can we do that? Do we have enough money to do that?
I'm talking about roadside right now
It's-
personally.
And put it into perspective, Shirley.
I
We do not have
No.
money to put solar panels on, so we don't do it.
Dan,
We have the needs of the
I am
roads to
asking
take
about
care of.
roadside management. It is budgeted and you're ignoring facts. All three of you are ignoring facts that you've been presented by several counties already and by the community. This
And continue
program
on.
saves money. And I want you three to be able to answer for your numbers. And this is probably February 13th. From the 13th until now, which is what, May 1? You haven't seen your proof of savings here. Produce your savings and convince me.
I have a question for you, Shirley. Since part of the roadside management cost is the very thing that Dan brought up a moment ago about buildings out there to accommodate this, which was part of the budget.
Mhm.
How come nobody knew about that? How come the new building went up? How about the redoing of the other building?
I knew about that.
You
I never
did?
I was on the advisory committee where you knew about it. He presented it in his report on his program to the advisory
I
committee.
never seen a dollar
Never
figure.
saw
on
a dollar
anything.
figure.
And most of that was paid for
Me
through a
too.
grant.
Well, I
That
can
building
see
was
that on
paid
the
for
grant
through a
sheet.
I
grant.
see that on the grant sheet.
It was paid for through a grant. You know, I ask questions. I'm in the engineer's office and I ask questions. If I don't know something and it's important enough to me, I go ask the source. But you all are just asking the road crews who don't have an education on the roadside program at all.
No, they're just the ones that do it.
I know, and I love our road crews. They're important people, but they don't have an education on the roadside program. You can't,
Why didn't he go out to the Bluffton Road and put all that grass in there? This prairie grass where they cut all the trees and Bluffton along the road.
did you ask him this?
Why didn't he?
Why didn't you ask him?
Are you telling us to
I
micromanage?
said-
You're telling us to micromanage?
Yeah.
Why
I'm
didn't you?
telling you, please
That it's
don't
not gonna work.
micromanage them.
It will not.
I'm
work then.
suggesting
Well,
you don't
Right,
micromanage our
the
engineers.
previous program obviously allowed those trees to be there. We had one of our people came in and showed pictures of a tree this big on the side of a road. That wasn't caused in the last 5 years. The previous program didn't take care of it.
So how
So
many years,
wash out of the bank,
how many years is it gonna take to him to get this program through all the roadside miles at 17 miles a year?
Not in your math. It wasn't in your math.
depends on how much you want to fund it. And if it's.
I will go back, I will go back to this, okay?
How much do we want to fund rock and crown roads and keep so the traffic going over them can do it? How much do we want to deal with?
You've
all of
never
the-
got the amount we
Excuse
can
me,
get to the road.
excuse me,
No, I'm
I'm
gonna interrupt
talking.
you on you gotta do
No,
with
no,
facts
no.
here, Mr. Kelly. Facts.
Oh,
please.
facts? We have some of the
Facts.
worst roads in all the surrounding counties around us, and
How do we-
everyone out in those other counties tells us.
How do you
So,
quantify that?
how do you quantify it?
The worst.
The worst?
We have the worst.
They tell us that in all the other counties.
They come over here and drive our roads.
They can tell you the difference when they come from Almaquin County on the gravel into Winneshiek County.
We have a lot of armchair engineers, and that's the problem here. We have a trained engineer, 22-year veteran, who has served this county incredibly well. Now we've lost him. We had a roadside manager who was held up by the state of Iowa Tallgrass Prairie Center as a model program. We've lost him. At what point are you gonna say, we gotta stop throwing skunks on the dance floor? At what point do you say, we were wrong, we made a mistake?
We didn't make a mistake as far as I'm.
Yes, you
concerned.
did. Yes,
My
you did.
opinion and your opinion are certainly divergent. We
You
do
know what?
agree on that, Shirley.
Mine is based in facts and numbers. That's how I lead, is with facts and numbers.
Then you must have those numbers I asked the engineer for then, Shirley,
Yeah,
if you
you
have
do,
doing that.
actually.
You have all the
But it's in just-
detail. It isn't in his report.
No, it isn't.
Yes, it
It
is.
isn't in his.
You've got
report,
one
Shirley.
flat dollar amount.
One
That's
flat
it.
dollar amount.
Well, what more do you?
We asked for a
Go ask,
breakdown of the
did you go
information.
ask for him for those other numbers that you felt you was so important that you needed?
We did ask.
You never went in and asked
But
for
to
them.
Shirley's point, you both made statements before you even asked. You
Right.
said, oh, it's 250 and it's 400. But nobody even asked, I mean, you came up with that someplace. But was
Yeah,
that, was that
yeah, wait.
rectified against, oh, we're not gonna hire somebody, we're gonna lay people off?
You've told me, Mark, that we're saving money. How much money are we saving?
Potentially based on what other counties have. You save money over time. I don't
How
know.
much?
In
How
the,
much?
in the first
You're
5
asking me to
years of
say
the
How much are you
program,
saving by just going out and blanket spraying, which we've been doing for the last
in the
70
first
years?
5 years of this program,
And
it
it's
was a
still
savings of
spraying the same amount of
$13,000.
We're not blanket spraying and
Private-
some of the people that call me.
You want
up
an
on
answer
my
to your question? In the first 5 years of this program, if you do with the program, without the program, we showed a gain of $13,000, not a loss.
That's what,
$13,000 is not much. The previous board was very educated and knew that this is an upfront cost program that it builds over time. It was just starting to build over time and show the successes, and you knocked it off at its knees because you didn't know, because you didn't understand the program. Well, we're begging you,
We
read
understand
about
what
the
we're doing.
program.
Sure.
Read about the
We've had
program.
8 weeks. We've had 8 weeks of education, haven't we?
I would think that you'd change your mind by now after that, yeah. I think that you'd be big enough to admit your mistakes by now, and it's shameful that you're not.
Well, I do it there if I have a mistake.
If there was a mistake, I'd admit it. My answer still is no. We can't-
Without producing your evidence, without producing your
Well,
numbers.
you've got all the
Change
numbers. You
your
just told me. You just told me so.
That's why I'm sticking with where I am. If you can convince me that this will save money,
I
go
doubt
for
that
it,
will ever happen.
go for it, because you haven't tried. You haven't given us your numbers.
If I give you my numbers, you'll twist and turn them, just like every other thing I say. You people do, you twist and turn them.
I haven't twisted or turned anything
Well-
in what I've produced for you. This is based on facts, because I actually talked to the people who are in charge of the program,
You take
not the
labor,
people who are,
you take labor, depreciation, fuel, insurance, add them all up. It's costing $250,000.
Peter paper so we can look at your numbers, Mark?
No, no,
Oh, you're not gonna put it on
because you're
paper?
gonna twist and turn and I know how that goes. I
Really,
know exactly how that goes.
really, Mark?
Yep.
So you don't
Get
have the
down there.
courage. You need to have the courage to show numbers here.
Oh, the courage.
All courage.
The courage needed to have
No,
this
Shirley,
critical
I know
conversation.
everything you do, twist and turn,
I'm
tell
dealing
people
in
what they,
facts.
you want them to hear.
I'm dealing
That's
in
the-
facts here.
You are?
I've been
Yes.
down
You're
this
gonna
road
save
3
in the
times.
next 10 years, Shirley.
We don't know exactly how much we'll save in the next
That must
10
not
years.
be facts then.
However, we heard from 8 counties who said it's hundreds of thousands of dollars in savings for them, and they would never eliminate the program. The 2 that did are putting it back into place because they saved money on it. I'm basing that
That's
on
why,
the wisdom and education and experience of 8 other counties,
that's why half the counties.
I'm not making it
in the
up.
state Don't have it.
because they haven't done it yet. If you give this time, you're gonna see the majority of states in this
It's
county
been,
doing it.
it's been in progress for what, 50 years?
1991.
Well, no, I
You
mean,
know how
no,
long
for the
it-
state, it's been for like 50 years and there's only 50 years and that's all you.
you realize how long change comes to shape in Iowa for many reasons. Same as regenerative farming.
Then why
It
didn't,
takes a long time to get that education through, but it will get there eventually. We will evolve eventually, and we'll all have it eventually.
talk to Howard County? They said, I asked them why they didn't. They said, once the grant money runs out there, the first initial investment to start it up, once that runs out, where does the money come from?
Howard County doesn't have one.
No,
Did you talk to the 8 that do? Did you call Joel Vance
I
and talk
talked
to
to
him?
one that doesn't, and he makes,
Didn't talk to ours. You're to call other counties and talk to their engineer, but you won't talk to ours. You won't talk to our engineer.
So
When I have a question that's important enough.
we gotta
to me,
back up to see where
I
we
go
start
and
going
get the
backwards here. Why are we so far behind on graders and trucks? You back up 5 years, 6 years. That's where it started. Cost that $250,000 we're putting into that roadside program. That's a truck a year. A grader every other year.
No, it's not.
Yes,
If
it
you
is.
do this program over time, we will see, according to those other counties, hundreds of thousands of dollars in savings into the future. That's what they're telling us. And if that's the case, we can transfer that savings and money into equipment.
We won't have.
That's how we can do it.
Then.
We want
It's
to,
actually, it's a solution. It's a solution that's been proven over time. It's a solution that's been proven over time. If you have questions,
I think we're gonna
I'm
agree that we
saying, I'm still
disagree.
talking. I'm saying that if you have questions and you want numbers that you haven't gotten answers on, go ask. Be big enough boys
Got
to walk
anything
over
else?
there and ask.
Shirley, dial it down. Will you?
No,
You're
no.
getting- You're
You got
getting.
anything else?
Two people now. This is not a time to dial down.
They
This is a
chose-
time to say enough is
They
enough.
chose to resign. You're right, Shirley.
Yep. It is unfortunate.
You have any more?
I don't want to see numbers. This is how many weeks in a row,
Let's see, that's probably 10 times now.
at least.
Yes.
So please- Thank you.
Move to adjourn, Mr. Chairman.
second,
We have a motion and a second for adjournment. Any further discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
hi.
Aye. Opposed? Meeting is now adjourned.
Hello, other questions, other topics. Who runs the?
Either any of you want this?
We don't have.
Information.
Right now, you mean the reporting system?
You can drive around and see it.
Oh,
I do.
The IT.
I'm on the county road quite a bit.
We talked to either John or Bob about it. Yeah.
You gotta leave town.
We are there.
Oh, do you follow my car? Do
Yeah.
you know which roads I travel?
He is working on getting.
Do you know which
We're
roads I
under the
travel?
understanding that the audio recording
Dan,
is pretty
just a
good,
minute.
so we're trying to
Do
get
you
back.
do you know what roads I travel on a weekly
But
basis?
if that's.
Which ones I
Yeah,
have?
that'd be better. Yeah, but he's got a order today. Yeah. Resignation, yeah.
There might be some already.
You know, they have a scholarship program and I might be able to do my hotel for free. I'm not registered for it, but I-
Well,